What is up, everybody? Isaac here with Civil Engineering Academy. Excited to be with you again. Another fun podcast episode. In today's episode, we're actually going to be covering if travel is required for success for engineering. So I'm going to bring Mark on. We're going to talk all about it. But before we do that, I want to talk about some resources and some good stuff to help you out on your exams. One of them is Built Bar. If you haven't checked out these guys, you definitely need to, and go use our affiliate link at civilengineeringacademy.com/built. This thing tastes just like a candy bar. I've I've used them. They're awesome. One of my favorites, the coconut one. If you're a fan of coconut, you're gonna love them. If you're not a fan, they got other options. So they got 130 calories. They've got 2.5 grams of fat, 4 grams of carbs, 4 grams of sugar, 6 grams of fiber, 17 grams of protein. You're gonna love it. Go compare that to the rest of the bars that are out there, even candy bars, and you'll be happy you do. So go check that out. Civilengineeringacademy.com/built. Use our code CIVAC, and you'll save 10% off your order. The other resource is that we have our newsletter. If you're not a part of our newsletter, you definitely want to be. We send out all our updates. We send out news related to civil engineering. Talk about our resources, our free practice problems that come out. Go to ceanewsletter.com. Go check that out as well. So those are the resources for you. If you're preparing for your exams, you definitely want all those. So anyway, let's bring Mark on so we can talk about travel and if it's required for success. Mark, what's going on?
Hey, Isaac, you keep inviting me back.
Yeah, I know. It's just part of the gig, man.
Yeah, it's fun. We always have a good time.
So did a little intro there. So today we're going to talk about travel and if it's required for success or not. You've done quite a bit of travel. I've done travel for various positions that I've held, whether it was local travel or travel to other states. Um, so I guess let's just start by answering that big question. Do you think travel is required to be successful as a civil engineer?
Well, I would say that yes, it is required, but there's it depends. There's always a caveat, right? I think it
Hmm.
depends a lot on the type of organization that you work for. If you work for um, maybe more of a national organization that's got locations all over the nation. Could be international. You may have locations outside of the country too. But if you're working with individuals that aren't within your office, and you have to interface with those individuals, including management, people that may be your superiors, that may you may report to directly. I think travel is required so that you can have some face to face time with those individuals and get to know them more personally. It's not just, we're kind of in an age of Zoom meetings now, given the COVID we're still kind of getting through. And so those kind of things are, I think, more acceptable, but they still don't take the place of personal interaction.
Yep.
Um, and so to get the full, I'll say, all the facets of personal interaction that you need to have with other individuals in your company, especially if it's kind of a nationally based firm, you got to travel some. It's just part of the deal, I think.
I think it's funny you bring that up because COVID has definitely changed some of the thoughts on how we communicate with each other. And I can tell you when I go out into the field, sometimes that it is not the best way for people to communicate. So, in a recent trip that I made, there was some issues that were happening out on the job site, and the construction crew and the owner's rep, they had some issues, but it was hard to really get everybody in the same room to talk about it, and that rarely happened because of COVID rules that were established a while ago. So everyone's used to email, Zoom calls, a phone call, things of that nature. And no one ever set up a regular, like, face to face to really talk about stuff. And I think that really did some damage, at least to the communication piece. It's funny because we have all these tools to communicate, but there is something there's some intangibles that go with like a face to face
Yes.
communication meeting versus
Yes.
something on a screen. And
Yeah.
that's kind of hard to describe, but
Yeah,
um,
when you can actually look into somebody's eyes and see how they hold themselves and their mannerisms, and you get, I don't know, there's an extra dimension there of that, you know, interpersonal interaction, right? That you
yeah,
just don't get on Zoom. Um,
s-
you just can't.
I totally agree. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting thing, and that that's something that I wouldn't have witnessed unless I traveled somewhere to see this stuff.
Yeah.
So most people that do travel, there's a certain level of uncertainty that's happening. You're going to a place maybe you might be unfamiliar with,
Yeah.
and it does make people uncomfortable.
It's a time to get a little anxious, is what it is, Isaac.
Yes.
You think about the logistics of just, you got to get up, you got to pack for the occasion, right? Usually it's staying over maybe a few days. Sometimes it's just one day, you're overnighter, but you're trying to pack, you're trying to remember everything you got to bring with you, and then just the logistics of getting to the airport, getting through the airport, right?
Yep.
Getting through security, you
Getting
know,
probed.
getting groped, right?
Gosh.
Sometimes they get pretty personal with the security check. So just getting through all of that, and then once you get to your destination, navigating your way to wherever you're going. It might be, an office. For me, it was always another job site, which could be in a dense urban environment. Maybe downtown Chicago or something, where I'm not from Chicago. I don't know the area very well,
Right.
and so there was a little bit of anxiety that goes along with that. Just getting to the location.
So I thought it would be fun to talk about maybe some of the benefits first, and maybe we could talk about some of the downsides of too much travel. And I know people do love traveling, that are out there, and they want to do it frequently and often, which is totally fine.
Yeah,
Um, Everyone's kind of in a different spot, and so I do think it is required, though. As a civil engineer, you're going to be asked to go check out a job site or go look at stuff, and it does depend on you know the company and the circumstances you are working in. But for the most part, if you're designing something, oftentimes you might be asked to go check out that design or make sure things are going well. So, what's a benefit you can think of travel?
well, there's those interpersonal relationships that you build. That's definitely a benefit, and I think I don't know, it shows that you're willing to go the extra mile. You're willing to, I don't know, put yourself out there if you're part of a team, and you're willing to go and meet with that team personally, face to face. It's a really good kind of a team building experience, to do that. It's just, I don't know. It just I think it sends the message to your employer, to your manager, that you're willing to do what it takes to be successful, to jump in, feet first, and or all in, man. You're gonna make this thing work, and you're a team player, and no matter what it takes, you're gonna try to understand all the people that you're involved with. You're going to try to understand all of the obstacles that you're up against, and you're willing to go that extra mile is one of the
Yeah.
big benefits.
I know for
Um,
sure it builds relationships. I've had positions and jobs where, you've designed, or maybe you're, for me, representing the owner of a job, and you go out there, you don't know who's out there exactly. Someone's constructing it, there's probably an owner that's overseeing it, and how, but you're not quite sure how all that fits together in one big puzzle piece.
yeah,
So you go out there and you start developing relationships. You find out, who they hired. Maybe they've hired a subcontractor to really run the thing as a supervisor, supervising the whole thing. You get to know the boots on the ground for construction.
Yeah.
Maybe there's an inspector that you
So
can
you,
tag along with.
so you gain an appreciation kind of for everything, don't you?
Oh yeah. So not only do you build relationships, but I think it also develops uh, a new perspective. Sometimes we get very myopic. We see one thing, we see engineering the whole time. We don't
Hmm.
see how these guys build stuff or the issues they face when they're out there. And
That's
so when you go out there, it's like, oh man.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. That's definitely a benefit, and I think to be a good engineer, especially a good design engineer, you have to get out in the field, and that requires some travel. You have to get out in the field and see how your design is affecting those that are actually building what you design. Um, a lot of engineers don't realize the constructability facet of their design and how it affects the guys that are actually trying to put things together. Everything
Mhm.
fitting together is anticipated, and so to really get a good appreciation for how your design is affecting the guys swinging the hammers and you know hoisting the rebar and placing the concrete and whatever else they're doing, erecting the steel. You really you can't fully gain appreciation for that unless you travel and get on the job site and talk to the guys and hey, what worked and what didn't work, and then make those changes and um, it
I think
affects
it
the way you
helps.
design.
I think it also, I mean, that not only is that like part of the job, but I think that helps refine you as an engineer. It makes you a better engineer.
Oh, absolutely.
You become a more seasoned engineer as you get out there and you see this stuff because you know the next time you design the thing, you're like, that didn't work, that did work. The crews are going to hate
Yeah.
you if you do it that way.
And in fact, some of those things that you're talking about, the things that work and that don't work, are actually based on the region that your project is in. You
Mm,
may have certain materials that are available in one region, but where you're doing some design, but maybe they're not in another region. And so you have to account for those things, and you don't really get a full understanding unless you're out and about and traveling to and talking to the people putting things together and actually spending some time in those regions that you're designing in.
yep. So I also think your communication skills are probably a big one that might take an uptick. Um, Sometimes you're required to voice your opinion about something or an issue. I had a friend that likened going to a site visit almost like going to war. Like you got to suit up, you got to get ready. You might, you know, kick some
Uh,
dirt up. You got to go inspect stuff, and if something doesn't line up or it doesn't look right, you got to make that observation and that
yeah,
call
well,
sometimes.
it
So
might be going to war if you have an adversarial relationship with the guys
that's
that
true
are
too.
building your stuff. And so you'd want to, in your travel and in your job site visits, you'd want to create those relationships, so that wasn't the case. So it wasn't like going to war.
Well, and sometimes, and you know this, that sometimes a construction guy will butt heads with an engineer, and it might be because they had some bad relationship with a previous person in the
Yeah.
past. But the better you can communicate and just get along with the people that are doing the
Well,
work, moving it
yeah.
forward,
And
the smoother it'll
superintendents are
be.
smart, man. If you like, as an engineer, if you explain the reason behind the way you design something, if he can see the reason why, he's a lot more understanding why he's got to take, a Burke bar and try to pry something into place and get it to fit because it has to be there.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously, I deal with a lot of trying to fit rebar into tight spaces. We had I'm on a job right now where we've got these core walls that are part of the lateral system on this resort building that we're building, and the spacing on the rebar is just so tight. And the confinement steel in these shear walls is just it's crazy. And so my superintendent's looking at that going, oh my gosh, how am I going to put concrete in this wall.
What are
The
you
rebar
doing to
is so
me?
the rebar is so dense, I can't even do this. And so, the engineer record, the structural engineer will come out and he my superintendent's complaining, but once he understands the seismic requirements and the reason we have to have confinement steel and a shear wall or a boundary element is so when the building starts shaking, that concrete in the core of that shear wall or that boundary element stays in place. Because if the concrete breaks out of there, then the wall is then no good, and the building, well, it tends to fall down. And so once they see that and they're like, oh yeah, okay, then they can kind of deal with it. But
Mhm.
it's because the engineer of record, the structural engineer of record, is willing to travel to the job site and develop that relationship with us and my superintendent, that some of those issues get worked out. So
Nice. Well, so I mean, the benefits of travel obviously I think outweigh any downside to travel, but there are definitely some downsides to traveling. Um, most people are going to have to go through an airport, and airports just generally stink. You know what I mean? Like, unless you love people watching or whatever, sometimes that
yeah.
sucks. And there are some airports that just generally suck. So,
Well,
uh,
yeah, I've been in a lot of airports in my career, and I can name some that just they always stink. I don't know why.
your flight will be canceled.
Your flight will get delayed. Your flight will be canceled. Yeah, there's certain airports that I really try to avoid, especially when I'm flying cross country. Um, and yeah, they're just airports can be tough.
Yeah. There people have some uncomfortable, some people, like I said earlier, love to travel, some don't. And, even if flying, I was flying home one time and I thought, there's a guy that was pretty big. I thought he was fine flying, but as soon as we hit some turbulent air, I've
Yeah.
never seen somebody seize up and grab a seat in front of them before. And it was like, oh crap, you know.
That reminds me, I had an experience flying into Star Valley. We were doing a job in Jackson, Wyoming. And oh man, Star Valley gets some nasty crosswinds. And back then I was flying into Star Valley from Salt Lake City on those one of those little Brasilia 120 type turbo prop planes. And it was a wild ride. It was a wild ride.
Little roller coaster.
Oh, I've never been on yeah, the roller coasters are tamer than what we went through that day. But man, the pilot got us through it and got us on the ground, but I was white knuckled all the way down.
I would be.
It was a scary experience, but there was a lot of people in the plane with me, yeah, that were just like that. They were just white, thinking, "Oh,
Oh man.
we're going
Well,
down."
yeah, I mean, that can suck. Um, Another part I think of traveling so much is like when you first hear you're going to travel and that you might get to eat out a lot. Sometimes that might be exciting, but after the third, fourth, fifth day out there and you're eating out for every
Oh,
meal,
yeah.
you might come home a few pounds heavier. I'll just say
Yeah, how
that.
do you deal with that, Isaac? How do you deal with that? 'Cause I've
Oh
had the
man,
same problem,
use
and
that gym at the hotel
yeah,
a
and
lot.
whenever I've traveled, it's like your itinerary is so booked solid. It's just like, I don't know, it's just there's time enough to get back at the hotel after you've had dinner, and then you're basically going to bed.
Hmm.
Then you wake up the next day, and then your itinerary is completely full again. There's not a lot
I
of time to work out. And
Yeah, and sometimes you just want to go to bed anyway because you're just mentally exhausted.
yeah, you're just kind of wiped out.
But yeah, it's tough to find time to do that. You make the best of it. Try to make better, healthier decisions with the food you
Get up
get.
earlier or something. Get
Don't
your
have a
workout early in
burger
the
for every
morning.
meal or something. Try
Yeah,
to
it's
spread it out. There's a little bit of like, oh man, I'm getting a per diem or I'm getting reimbursed for every meal, whatever that reimbursement is. So people do feel obligated to eat all of those meals, but you
yeah,
just end up eating a lot. I know I was feeling it when I came back from my trip. the
yeah.
So,
So, how much would you say is like too much travel? Where do you draw
mm,
the line?
it's a good question. I personally, I think it depends on your family life. Are you a single guy? Are you a single girl? Are you married? Do you have children? Do you not have children? Do you enjoy traveling a lot? Do you not enjoy it?
Yeah.
I mean, when I go on a travel trip, I have 4 kids, and my wife doesn't like that. You can imagine why.
Right.
I
Right.
might like it. It gets me away for the take a little
Well,
break.
yeah, when I first started my career, I was commuting to St. Louis from Salt Lake City. And so I'd fly into St. Louis on Sunday nights. So I was there at the office Monday morning, and then I'd
Oh,
work all week and I'd fly home, Friday afternoon, Friday nights. I did that for over a year. And, my wife back then, my boys were pretty young. They were, 2, 3 years old. And that got tough, you know,
wow.
that got tough. I was glad when that little stint of my career ended because it was tough commuting that far. But
That's another thing to talk about too with travel is like some people. I know myself. I enjoy making Monday and Friday like the travel days. Like I'm billing the job. I'm traveling Monday, Friday. But some companies want you to travel on Sunday, so you're there Monday morning. And it probably depends on the job and the company and the culture you're with. But
yeah,
um, those are things that you have to think about when
yeah,
you're traveling a
because
lot.
it's actually encroaching a little bit on your personal time, right?
Yep.
Yep. But that also goes back to whether they view you as maybe this guy's more of a team player. He's willing to go that extra mile, and he's willing to travel on a Sunday afternoon or a Sunday night. So he's there Monday morning.
Yep.
Sometimes those things are required, but yeah, they can be tough.
Totally agree with you. So a lot of stuff to consider. I do think travel is going to help, especially as restrictions are going down and more companies are encouraging people to go travel or go look at stuff. Um, from what I have noticed, but I do think that to be successful, you will probably need to step up to the plate when travel time comes,
Yes.
and go up your game and level up your skills and go learn more about your job and the team you're working with and all of those things. So I think all those are good stuff. So
Yep, I
good,
agree.
good points. Anything else you want to add to our travel discussion?
Well, just we've kind of circled around here a little bit, but I think we've determined that it is required for success, and it depends on of course, the company you're working for and everything, but um, just plan on doing it. And so the trick is just making the best of it. If you're somebody who enjoys travel, you enjoy the challenge of figuring out where you're going, then good on you. But if you're like, I think most people, and it's a little bit of an anxious time where you're trying to figure out where you're going and just the logistics of getting there, it can be a challenge. So look for those things that make it better. I used to always find little podcasts or something I like to listen to on the plane, or
Oh
maybe
yeah.
you get your favorite movies lined up on your mobile device, whatever it is. There's ways to make travel uh bearable, or more enjoyable.
Yep. I totally agree.
So
Well, this has been a fun discussion. I think it's always a good point to talk about. We both have taken a lot of work trips, so it's good to hammer these out and talk about how travel affects civil engineers and what we do in this industry. So, Mark, thanks for jumping on. And
yeah, you bet.
if you guys need any more resources to help you pass your exams, go check out civilengineeringacademy.com. We've got FE courses, we got PE courses, we got lots of resources there. So go check it out. And if you found us on our YouTube channel, make sure you are subscribed and go subscribe to our newsletter so you'll be the first one to hear about anything else we're producing. So good stuff.
Right
Anyway,
on.
thanks, Mark.
You bet.
See
See
ya.
ya.